This is a Strong's Concordance. You might ask, what is a Strong's Concordance? A Strong's Concordance gives you the Hebrew and the Greek definitions for the words in the Bible, because originally the Bible was written in Hebrew and Greek. And so when you get a Strong's Concordance, it will help you so much understand what words mean. And also, one word has different words that it means. They're in the same realm, but they're not always exactly the same. And for instance, one word can have 5 words to describe it. We're going to keep that in mind because what I'm about to show you is pretty incredible. And I was put to task by some friends. They said, well, what about this? Does the King James Bible contradict itself? And I have the answer. So here we go. So here we are in Acts chapter 9, verse 7, the King James Bible. Now look at what it says. And the men which journeyed with him, speaking of journeyed with Paul, stood speechless, hearing a voice, but seeing no man. Notice it says hearing a voice. This is when Jesus Christ was speaking to the Apostle Paul. It says, let me go over it one more time. They stood speechless, hearing a voice, but seeing no man. So the voice that they were hearing, Paul also heard, which was Jesus Christ. This is Acts chapter 9, verse 7. Now, let me blow your mind just a little bit. Let's go to Acts chapter 22, verse 9 in the King James Bible. Here we are. And they that were with me, now this is Paul describing the same event, saw indeed the light and were afraid, but they heard not the voice of him that spake to me. Do you see that? In Acts chapter 9, it says they heard the voice. In Acts chapter 22, it says they heard not the voice that spake to Paul. Let's take a look at this. Acts chapter 9, verse 7 in the English Standard Version. Now, please bear with me if you're King James Bible only. So am I, but it is what it is. Let's look at this. The men who were traveling with him stood speechless, hearing the voice, but seeing no one. So the ESV says the same thing as the KJV in Acts chapter 9, verse 7. It says that they heard the voice. Okay, now let's go to see what the ESV says in Acts chapter 22. Acts chapter 22, verse 9, English Standard Version says, now those who were with me, remember Paul is speaking about the same event, saw the light but did not understand the voice of the one who was speaking to me. Aha, what do we have here? It doesn't say heard anymore. It says they did not understand. Therefore, we do not have a contradiction in the English Standard Version. Why is this? Remember in the beginning of this video I said in the Strong's Concordance, in the Greek and in the Hebrew, one word, sometimes you'll see like 5 words to describe that one word. Remember, we have an English version. In fact, the King James Bible is an Old English version of Greek and Hebrew. These languages are far apart. Now, let's take a look at what the Strong's says. Now, here we go. Let me show you how this works. So, Acts, see that right there? A-C-T. It'll give you the chapter and the verse and the word right here. So, Acts, we want to go down to chapter 9, verse 7. Speechless, heard a voice, but seeing no man. Now, you see the H right there? H is heard, stands for heard. And the number to that is G191. That means Greek number 191. Let's go to that. Here we are. Heard. A primary verb, to hear, in various senses. You see that? In various senses. Give in the audience of, come to the ears, shall. Now here it is. Hear, hearers, hearken, be noised, be reported, and the last but not least, to understand. Understand. Remember in the ESV, Acts chapter 22 changed the word heard to understand. And Acts chapter 9 stayed the same. But in the King James Bible, they were both saying heard. So what is our conclusion? Is the King James Bible wrong? No. We have two languages that are very far apart from the English language. Sometimes it can get confusing like this. So what can we say in conclusion? Is the ESV more accurate than the King James Bible? I don't believe that. I believe in this instance it is easier to understand, but it is not more accurate simply because of the word exchange here. It means the same thing, but you got to understand we're dealing with the English language. And so there you go. Does the King James Bible contradict itself? No. It's simply, if you look in other Bibles, specifically in the ESV, it's better understood as to what it's actually saying. Okay, just to be perfectly clear here, the King James Bible says that they heard the voice and they didn't hear the voice. The ESV says they heard the voice, but they didn't understand the voice. So at first glance, it looks like the King James Bible contradicts itself, but we just figured that problem out. I mean, in my opinion, you have to give credit where credit is due. I'm a King James Bible only guy. But in this instance, it's much easier to be understood in the English Standard Version. Here we have a similar case of where the King James Bible looks like it might be in question, but let's take a look at what's going on. James 1:13, King James, let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted of God, for God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempteth he any man. So Genesis 22:1 says, King James, and it came to pass after these things that God did tempt Abraham, and said unto him, Abraham, and he said, behold, here I am. So in James 1:13 it says, God doesn't tempt any man with evil. The key part here is with evil. Then in Genesis 22:1 it says that God tempted Abraham. Okay, so here's the word tempt in the Strong's Concordance in Greek, in other words. Now you see the definitions: to make proof of, to attempt, to test, to try. Okay, so that's some other words to describe the word tempt. But what I want to show you that's really important is over here to the right, where it says 3985. Okay, now right above that it says context alone determines which sense is intended, or if both apply simultaneously. You see, it says that God does not tempt man to do evil. So it depends on what sense it's being used in. Now look at down below that, 3985 means tempt in a negative sense, and it gives you some verses. Then it says 3985, same exact word. On the bottom it says, however, is used of positive tests. There's the key. There's the key right there. It unlocks the whole thing. A positive sense and a negative sense that the word can be used in. So going back to James 1:13, in James 1:13 here it says, let no man say when he is tempted. Now it's talking about tempted of evil. Look at, in a negative sense. Remember, we just looked that up. Let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted of God, for God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempteth he any man. Speaking about tempting a man with evil in a negative sense. Now look over here at Genesis 22. And it came to pass after these things that God did tempt Abraham, or test Abraham, not with evil though. You see that? In a positive sense. So thank you guys. God bless. This is Hidden Treasure from Hidden Wisdom.